Chairman, thank you. Thanks to you and the ranking member for having this hearing. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Dr. Collins, let me first thank you for joining me on a phone call with the University of Kansas Health System, in which your report on a vaccine was the highlight of the day, month, and year. So I'm pleased to hear that medical researchers and practitioners in Kansas heard what you said and found it to be a very pleasing, kind of an optimistic note. Let me ask something that is COVID-19, or is a virus so unique that there are not things that can be done to better prepare us for the next virus, the next pandemic, so that a vaccine development is developed, the development occurs in a shorter period of time? Or is it just starting, I don't know that scratch is the right word, but starting from scratch each time?
It's a great question, Senator. And yes, I enjoyed talking to the folks in Kansas, a wonderful bunch of scientists and physicians. Coronaviruses, of which this is one, have been around a long time. Some of them cause the common cold, and we still haven't cured that one, but it hasn't been such a high priority. And SARS and MERS were also coronaviruses. We learned something from them. If we'd not had already an effort to try to develop vaccines for SARS and MERS, we wouldn't have been able to jump on SARS-CoV-2, this guy, quite as quickly. So every time you do this, you get a little better at it. And plus, the overall technology for how we develop vaccines has been advancing. The lead vaccine now, in terms of its earliest out of the gate, which is the Moderna vaccine, and also the Pfizer one that was announced yesterday, same principle, utilizing RNA as the thing that you actually inject so that you ask the body to make the protein, which then becomes the antigen that your immune system reacts to. That's pretty new. We would not have done that 10 years ago. We wouldn't have known how. And we'll keep getting better at new ideas at that. I do hope, and maybe this is part of your question, that we learn from this experience that when we get through this, because we're going to get through this, we don't then go back into some complacency and say, well, that's it. We won't ever have another one like that again, because we all know we will. And what will it be? Will it be another coronavirus? Will it be that influenza epidemic that we've been worried we're overdue for, coming out of somewhere that's actually going to be very dangerous? We should never again step back into the point of complacency with these kinds of emerging infections. And I hope we will therefore, from what has been built to deal with COVID-19, sustain that.
Dr. Collins, thank you. I want to follow up on that, but I want to make sure I get a question to Dr. Redfield, and I'll try to be back to Dr. Collins. Dr. Redfield, thank you for the telephone conversation we had several months ago. I would highlight for you and others who might be listening that the issue of PPE, personal protection equipment, is back front and center. It seemed to me in my life it had diminished a bit, but in a conversation with community leaders, including hospital and public health officials, the concern is the supply is short once again as the numbers increase and the potential of a greater circumstance, a more challenging circumstance comes in this fall. So any suggestions that anyone who hears this statement of mine has on how I can get additional PPE to Kansas public health hospitals and employers, I would welcome that. But let me ask you, one of the things I take away from what's transpired is the importance of the public health departments. And I think generally we have, until I served on this committee, I didn't realize the significant role that CDC plays in support of our community and public health departments. What is it that needs to take place so that when the vaccine is developed, our public health departments are prepared to administer that vaccine in the distribution? How can CDC, how can this committee help make certain that occurs well?
Thank you very much, Senator. I think you've heard me say before, we've had decades of underinvestment in our public health departments across this nation, and this is the time now to correct that. And you all have really made great support. CDC has already awarded $12 billion with a B to the local, state, territorial, tribal health departments in the last 8 weeks or so to begin to give them the resources they need to begin to build up their capacity. The human capacity usually takes longer than weeks to build up. We're obviously, as you know, I said CDC has over 650 people now embedded in the local health departments to help with that human capacity. and we're going to continue to work with them. Recently, with the resources you did with the CARES Act, we were able to get a little over $10 billion out for each of the jurisdictions to put up plans to how to expand their testing, their contact tracing, their isolation, their public health infrastructure. So we're doing it on the run. I think you've heard me say before, when it comes to public health, this is something we as a nation should plan to be over-prepared, not under-prepared. And I do believe this is the moment in time when this nation can actually help put the public health infrastructure across this nation, not only that we need, but this nation deserves. As you mentioned, most of CDC's money actually get distributed to the local, state, territorial, tribal health departments, and some of these health departments were 70% of their overall funding. So we are the nation's funder, through you, of the public health infrastructure of this nation, and we need to augment that to where we're now over-prepared for the next pandemic.
Mr. Chairman, if you have a second round, I'll try to follow up with Dr. Collins.
Thank you, Senator